Welcome back. Today, we're looking at something absolutely chilling, but honestly, analytically fascinating. How does a massive intelligence deception happen literally right in plain sight? We're taking a strictly forensic approach to a newly released report by the Ahmet Institute. They break down Hamas's multidimensional deception plan leading up to October 7th. We're going to stick strictly to the captured documents and data to really understand the anatomy of this whole operation. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so we're going to break this explainer down into 5 distinct pillars. Formulating the decisive campaign, avoiding direct confrontation, the economic facade, distractions and routine exercises, and finally, the final preparations.
All right, part 1, formulating the decisive campaign. So the timeline for this operation actually kicks off right after Operation Guardian of the Walls, back in May 2021. Hamas internally viewed that specific conflict as a strategic victory, and they immediately started putting together what they called the decisive campaign. Take a look at the captured document on screen from Hamas military intelligence. It's dated September 13, 2022, and explicitly calls for a multidimensional deception plan at the strategic level. Notice how they break it down: political, military, economic, and media. This wasn't just some standard military buildup, It was a comprehensive effort to completely blind opposing intelligence on every single front.
Moving right along to part 2, avoiding direct confrontation.
Now, the first operational pillar was all about projecting a false desire for long-term calm. To pull this off, they made a very deliberate, calculated choice to absorb tactical incidents without retaliating. It's wild when you compare these public provocations with their internal containment. Take the May 2022 flag march in Jerusalem, for example. Publicly, highly provocative, but internally, Hamas actively chose containment. Their internal communication stated, point-blank, that they needed to maintain absolute focus on their big project.
And we have the captured documentation to prove it. What you're seeing here are the minutes from a Hamas Political Bureau meeting on May 16, 2023. You can clearly see Yahya al-Sinwar actively working to restrain another group, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, during Operation Shield and Arrow. He specifically says they absolutely must not turn a tactical campaign into a strategic one. Actually, scratch that. They didn't just sit on the sidelines. They actively held back a conflict, specifically to convince Israeli intelligence that they were no longer interested in war.
Okay, part 3. The economic facade.
The next really critical layer of this deception was convincing Israel that Hamas leadership had shifted its priorities completely away from conflict. They wanted Israel to think they were solely focused on governance and economic relief for the Gaza Strip. A huge part of this facade involved a Qatari grant. We're talking about a $30 million monthly influx. This covered fuel expenses, assisted roughly 100,000 poor families, and created 3,000 to 4,000 temporary jobs. Now, on the surface, sure, it looks like standard administrative and humanitarian management. But strategically, this economic relief mechanism became a perfect tool to lull Israel into a false sense of security, constantly reinforcing the narrative that Hamas could be contained through economic stability.
This next document beautifully, chillingly, illustrates that exact strategy. This is another primary source. It's the minutes from a December 2019 meeting between Hamas leadership and the Qatari foreign minister. Look closely at the text here. It proves that both parties viewed these aid funds explicitly as a calculated pressure mechanism against Israel. The entire economic narrative was carefully cultivated to manipulate perception.
Which brings us to part 4, distractions and routine exercises.
This brings us to what is perhaps the most fascinating and definitely the most visible layer of the whole deception plan. They deliberately publicized massive drills and manufactured regional distractions to hide their true intentions in plain sight. It's classic misdirection. Look at this Hamas propaganda right here. While they were actively preparing for an invasion from Gaza, they intentionally shifted media and political attention entirely away from the Strip. They intensely focused their rhetoric on boiling tensions in Judea and Samaria, and falsely claimed there were immediate threats to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. They even circulated this image claiming Israel was digging a new tunnel right beneath it. It was just a massive, calculated misdirection of attention.
Meanwhile, right on the border, they were running these strong pillar military exercises. Notice the chronological sequence here because it's key. These drills happened in December 2020, December 2021, December 2022, and then September 2023. By repeatedly broadcasting these massive joint military exercises over a 3-year period, they essentially conditioned Israeli intelligence to view them as just a harmless, routine display of strength. It literally normalized the abnormal.
Now look closely at these side-by-side images from Strong Pillar 2 and 3. You are seeing fighters rehearsing the exact invasion tactics that they would later use, training for soldier abductions on the left and tank attacks on the right. And here's the crazy part. According to a captured directive from Yahya al-Sinwar, doing this openly was a deliberate choice. He believed that if they tried to hide the training, Israel would suspect an attack. But if they just broadcasted it to the world, intelligence agencies would brush it off as just being for show.
And that misdirection continued right up to the very end. These images are from the final exercise, Strong Pillar 4, in September 2023. Notice the sets they built. They weren't just simulating random military bases. They explicitly simulated IDF bases located in Judea and Samaria. Even during their final rehearsal, they were actively trying to distract Israeli intelligence from the actual targets sitting right on the Gaza border.
Finally, Part 5. The final preparations.
As we move into those final weeks leading up to the Jewish High Holy Days in late September and early October of 2023, all the pieces lock into place. The timeline is escalating rapidly now. What you're seeing is a captured intelligence directive ordering forces to mask their pre-invasion movements. It explicitly instructs operatives to use routine training and the normal pace of building military positions as camouflage. Basically, they were instructed to be highly active on the border so that the massive buildup of forces wouldn't trigger any alarms. They were just exploiting the fact that opposing intelligence was already totally used to seeing them there.
And the success of this strategy? Well, it was later confirmed directly by their own leadership. Senior Hamas figure Khaled Mashal stated post-attack, and I quote, "The movement's leadership in its wisdom once again misled the enemy." He explicitly admitted that the deception was deliberate and strategically timed around the September and October 2023 holiday period to maximize surprise while the rest of the world was basically looking the other way.
Which leaves us with a totally devastating paradox, right? If a military force broadcasts its exact invasion plans for 3 years straight, why does the opposing intelligence agency view it as a desire for peace? This explainer really shows how confirmation bias, economic facades, and a meticulously executed plan to hide in plain sight can completely blind even the most sophisticated intelligence networks in the world. So take a moment to really think about what this means for the future of intelligence gathering. How easy is it to see only what you expect to see? Thanks for learning with me today, and I'll see you on the next explainer.